One, most people have their hips too far back at setup. Two, their hips are actually coming in during the backswing. And three, they continue coming in on the way down and through. So what we want to do is check all three of those in one drill. That's why this is so good. I saw some George Gankis probably 5 or 6 years ago. I've been using it ever since. Credit to George, it works really good. All right, so I've been waiting probably literally 10 years to find a right wrist training aid that I would fall in love with. I have this precision impact training aid that I have been testing now for the past couple of months to make sure I like it. This right wrist training aid, I'm telling you, I've tried them all, is unbelievable. You put this on your right wrist and you'll notice when I make a backswing, it gives me some auditory feedback and I can set my right wrist about as far back as I can, and it locks that angle in. And it enables you to create the right wrist bend during the backswing, and also because of this little ball here, I can go up and down when I do it. It's absolutely freaking brilliant, and I've been using this a lot. It's gonna help your impact a ton. You go down below, you click the little link down there for Precision Pro, and you grab one of these. I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. There's a little coupon code in there, you get 20 bucks off. Keeping the right wrist bent back, okay, is the key. How your hips work in the golf swing is probably the most important thing you can control right after your club face angle. I've been doing so many lessons at CogornoGolf.com. I appreciate you guys and the support. And so many times we're talking about this hip depth. I mean, I must do it, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 times. We're talking hip depth, and really it controls everything. It affects everything. It affects your ability to keep your inclination during the downswing. It affects your club path. It affects your club face angle. It affects dynamic loft, shaft lean, rotation, how far you hit it, how high you hit it, how consistent you are. I mean, it affects everything. So the drill I want to show you here today is one that I use without fail, and that works really, really good. I'm going to show you step by step how to use it. So all you need for this is a chair or an object behind you. And I know some of you have seen this before, but the version we're going to do might be different than what you've seen. Now there's 3 ways that I see the hips go off in terms of the extension, flexion extension. So if I take my setup and you just look at my body angles relative to the ground, I'm a certain amount bent over, right? And to make the golf swing as easy as possible, I want to keep my body that same distance from the ground the whole time. Now in order to do that, I have to keep hip depth. What that means is if I draw a line down my butt should stay on that line on the way back, in transition, and on the way through. If my hips come forward and my butt comes off the line, notice my head goes up and back. So what that means is when my hips go in towards the ball, it changes my body's distance from the ground. Now, as I'm changing my body's distance from the ground, you could imagine that makes consistency more difficult, and it changes everything else. So here's how the drill works. I see this go off in 3 ways. One, most people have their hips too far back at setup. 2, their hips are actually coming in during the backswing. And 3, they continue coming in on the way down and through. So what we want to do is check all 3 of those in one drill. That's why this is so good. I saw some George Gankis probably 5 or 6 years ago. I've been using it ever since. Credit to George, it works really good. So here's how I would do this. And you can just imagine you're standing up just straight up and down and you have like a wall behind you. In order to not have your hips too far back, you want to start by having them more under. So you set up, the chair object's behind you, 1 fist away from your butt to set up, like you're just standing normal. Hold the club up in front of you. From here, we're going to bend our knees over the edge of the balls of the feet, kind of edge of the shoelaces. And then we're going to round down from the top to get down to the golf ball. Now notice as I do that and I round down to the ball, my butt didn't hit the chair. So checkpoint number 1, your butt should not hit the chair. If it lightly touches it, I might be able to live with that, but it shouldn't push back into it. When your hips are too far back at setup, and that's defined by the center of the hips behind the ankles, your body is like kind of at end range of motion. It's got nowhere to go. It's going to start to go towards your toes just to find balance. And as your weight's going towards your toes, your hips kick in, my head lifts, I got to early throw my arms, add dynamic loft, no shaft lean, no club face control, etc. So it's really important we get the setup piece good. 1 fist away, knees down over the balls of the feet, edge of the shoelaces, round down from the top. So now when I have my setup position, I want to have a couple of checkpoints here. The center of the hips over the center of the ankle, like I mentioned. The kneecaps and the armpits are over the balls of the feet. The arms are hanging down kind of right in front of the toe line, right? That would be normal. Now the pressure in my feet is on the ball of my foot. It's not on the toes, it's not in the middle, it's on the ball of my foot. That's the best position for me to create hip depth in the swing like you're going to see with the Cameron Champ model. So after you do your setup pieces, what I want you to do with the chair is pull it up so it just lightly touches your butt. Don't push back to hit it. Pull it up so it lightly hits it. Now you can check mark 1 out of 3. You've got the setup correct. On the way back, the first thing that can lead to early extension, the hips kicking in, is the hips going off the wall, right? So that actually can happen during the backswing, the pressure towards your toes and your hips in. So what you want to feel on the way back is the weight going towards your heel and the right hip pushing back into the chair. There should be a little bit of straightening of the right leg as you do that. That would be part number 2. Now, part number 3 is to go from there and get your left seam line onto the chair. Where I see this, when I tried this when I was growing up, I was taught push your right butt back, push your left butt back. But then when I push my left butt back, I'm in this position where like my chest is down and forward, my hips are back. I feel like I can't swing through the ball. That's because that's not how you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to get your seam line on it. So that would be like the side part of my pants here. That seam line should push on it. That gives me the rotation and the tilt. And as I'm getting my seam line, I'm still pushing my hips forward. I see this a lot too. My hips aren't back as I'm doing this. Yeah, I've never seen a good player with their hips back like this. You push your hips forward as they're tilted and turned, so the seam line on it, right? What a good drill this is. So normal setup position, one fist behind here. Knees, round down from the top, okay? Now pull this under you, pressure's in the balls of the feet. If you're used to having your hips back, you're gonna feel like your hips are way underneath you. Your pressure's gonna feel forward. Shouldn't be on your toes, balls of the feet, okay? And you're gonna go right butt back. Both hips are on it in transition. You don't really need to worry too much about that. But then get your left seam line onto it. And I want you to start hip high, hip high. So these are half swings. We're going to do 2 rehearsals. Knees. And I'd be disciplined with this and just be a little monotonous and do it every time correctly. Pull it up. Right hip back. Left seam line. And what you should feel compared to normal, let's do that one more time. Probably not a chair with wheels on, okay, when you're doing this, but just for the sake of example, pull this under. Setup pieces are good. Hips are under at setup. Right hip, left seam line. And I would start with that and record your swing. I like 2 rehearsals, 1 hit, check the video. 2 rehearsals, 1 hit, check the video. So fist is on, knees, round down. Pull this under, and now I'm gonna go just hip high, and clip a little one out. Right hip back, left seam line. And that would be my first hit. Now what I'm checking on video is to make sure my left seam line is actually on this object. So my butt's not back into it with my hips back, my seam line's onto it. And from here, my hips are still pushed forward. I'm pushing my hips forward over my ankle with my hips deep, right? That's the point of this. So I just did 1 rep there. Okay, and this sort of practice, by the way, is what you should be doing. If you're at CogornoGolf.com, you know this. If you're not, you should be there. By the way, we're still doing 14-day free trial. You can try it absolutely risk-free. I'm going to personally analyze your swings. Side note, but when you're doing this, that's how you should practice, right? Like 2 rehearsals, hit a ball, and now I would check the video. I'd draw a line down my butt and say, okay, did I do that correctly or not, right? And I would rinse and repeat that 20 to 30 reps. I would do it hip high. Then I'd go to arms parallel to the ground. Once that gets easier, then I'd go full swing with it. And as you can see with the Cameron Champ model, that hip depth, that's what the best players do. That's what controls everything during your downswing. But you have to do all 3 of those. The hips under at setup, the right hip back, the left hip back. As the right hip goes back, the right leg is straightening some, not locking straight, but straightening some. The weight's to the right heel. As I'm going down to my left seam line, the left leg is straightening and the weight's to the left heel. So that will work if you work it correctly. If you're still struggling with your swing, go to CogornoGolf.com. Try out the 14-day free trial. Send me your swings. I'm going to personally analyze them, and you get to try it absolutely risk-free. If you don't like it or it doesn't work for you, you don't have to pay anything. If it does work, then I give you solutions like this for whatever you're struggling with, and you're going to play better golf. So hopefully some of you will check that out. I look forward to working with you there. If you have any questions on this early extension drill, this hip depth drill, anything else, leave a comment down below.